What's up guys, and welcome back to more Reddit stories about Karens, crazy people, and all that kind of stuff. As usual, we got some more Reddit posts to check out today, so be sure to share your thoughts about these stories in the comments and we're getting right into it. Got Karened today in a parking lot while my toddler screamed in the back seat. Just need to vent. Today was one of those days where you just think, wow, people really suck sometimes. I was parked, getting out of my car when the wind blew my door open gently. It barely touched the car next to mine. No visible dent, just a possible mark. I immediately acknowledged it and offered to exchange info. When I explained it was the wind, not to avoid responsibility but just to clarify that it wasn't a careless act, she cut me off with, No, something like this happened before and it costs $2,000. My car is new. At that point, it felt less like she was assessing real damage and more like she was trying to guilt trip and manipulate me. She even pointed out a completely unrelated mark further down and insisted that was from my door too, which made no sense based on where the door touched. And then it escalated fast. She started filming me and my toddler, who was crying in his car seat, scared and confused. She threatened to call the police. I was trying to stay calm, juggle my phone, pull up my insurance app, and soothe my child, and she just kept the camera on us. I could feel my son's distress behind me, and that's when I lost it emotionally and called 911 myself. I didn't feel safe or respected, and I needed a neutral record of what was happening. After I gave her my info, I went back into the car to comfort my son, who by then was screaming and crying from the stress. I looked up, and she was still filming us. I was literally just trying to calm my scared toddler, and she kept her phone pointed at us like we were some kind of show. That moment broke me. And it didn't stop there. When I showed her that I'd called 911, she told the police I had banged on her window, which was absolutely false. I simply held up my phone near the window to show her the call screen. She also accused me of locking my child in the car with no air circulation, which was so far from the truth. I was right there, window cracked, AC on. It was just another manipulative accusation meant to make me panic. She even lied about having the same insurance as me, USAA, when I first mentioned mine, but it turned out she was with Geico. Just more weird, unnecessary power moves. I know she probably assumed she could intimidate me because I'm an immigrant, English isn't my first language, and I look like someone who might not push back. But I didn't back down. I gave her my info, I made the call, and I stood my ground. My husband showed up by Uber when I called him, and for the first time in the whole interaction, I felt not alone. I'm still feeling the stress hours later, but I'm proud of how I handled it. I didn't yell, I didn't film her back, I didn't escalate. I protected my son and kept my dignity. It is interesting how some people will just completely go out of their way to make something into a much bigger deal than it is. When OP admitted their mistake and offered to exchange information, it honestly just should have been left at that. Everything else after that in this entire interaction was just completely unnecessary. She was obviously just trying to intimidate OP for whatever reason, which may or may not have also been because of OP's race, who knows. But at least in this situation, it was all bark and no bite, so I think OP handled it well to just ignore her as best as she could. My coworker scarred a customer hiding in the bathroom after close. Typical corporate BS. The store I work at doesn't allow us to do customer final announcements, or allow employees to shop on the clock while customers are in the store. Don't want the customers knowing we want them out or that we too are humans and need to buy food. Anyways, to let employees know everyone's left and they can shop, we do an employee announcement. Some of our managers don't give a crap, so they do a quick one that's like, "They're gone, now hurry up, I recorded the game." Or they even let us lowly plebs do our own version. For the last 20 minutes of being open, my coworker begged the manager to let her do the announcement. Wouldn't tell any of us what it would be, only laughing maniacally. After how stupid the Easter Eve shift was, the manager agreed, because surely if she was laughing like that, it would be good. Well, the person assigned to do final customer count says we're good, store empty. My coworker goes over to the intercom and announces, "Good evening, store employees, the store is now closed." You know what that means. And here is normally where the person says you can shop, but instead she finishes with, "Any customers locked inside can be hunted for sport." We all had a good laugh, haha, great announcement. But then, the person doing the final customer count hadn't checked the bathrooms, and this middle-aged lady tried to leave without anyone noticing, but obviously the doors were locked. I don't think she actually thought we would hunt her for sport, but she did look very concerned. Excited to see if she leaves a review or calls the store. I outed my closeted uncle after he shamed me for being gay at a family dinner. I, 25 male, came out to my family at 20. Most were cool, but my uncle, Dave, 45, has always been weird about it, constantly making comments like, "You don't have to act so gay," or when I was younger, men kept that to themselves. I shrugged it off until last week. At a family dinner, Dave started going off about how pride parades are just perverts wanting attention, and how real men don't flaunt it. When I called him homophobic, he smirked and said, "Your generation's obsessed with labels. Why can't you just be normal?" Here's where I might have been a jerk. I'd suspected Dave wasn't straight for years. He's always been oddly fixated on my dating life, and once I even spotted him on Grindr. I recognized his torso tattoo in a very not safe for work pic. I never said anything until now. I snapped, "That's rich coming from a guy who's on Grindr every weekend. How's that working out for you?" Silence. Then my aunt, his wife, gasped. She had no idea. Dave went pale, knocked over his wine glass, and left. Later, my mom texted me, "You humiliated him. Was that necessary?" Some family members are on my side, but others say outing him crossed a line, even if he's an asshole. I'm torn. He's been nasty to me for years, but I know how dangerous it is to out someone. Honestly, I think it was kind of fair play what OP did. If he's gonna spout that kind of hate towards a family member, and especially one that knows his secret, then you better expect them to retaliate. Granted, he probably didn't know that OP knew about it, but the point still stands. But yeah, Uncle Dave has definitely got some issues that he needs to work through. It's pretty clear that he's had to live his life pretending that he's someone that he's not, and the way he's treating OP probably comes from a place of envy, that OP is able to be so open and honest about who he is. So in a general sense, yeah, it's usually not very cool to out someone else, but I'd say Uncle Dave backed OP into a corner, and it was kind of fair game at that point. Shouting at a teacher after she took my cochlear implants in class. Before getting into this, a little background information is needed. I, 17 male, was born deaf to a hearing family. My family and I sign at home, but I need to speak while at school, as the high school I go to isn't the most accessible or disability friendly. When I was 9, my parents paid for me to get a surgery to receive cochlear implants, CIs, which I only really use when at school or out with my hearing friends that don't sign. I attend a mainstream school, and as I stated, it isn't disability friendly. Now onto the situation at hand. Yesterday I was wearing a beanie in class. Now usually that wouldn't be a problem when it is my normal teacher, but yesterday we had a sub. The beanie I was wearing was covering the transmitter of my CI, while the part that hooks onto my ear was noticeable. I know that there are a lot of kids that tend to get in trouble because they'd wear AirPods, or whatever devices people use nowadays for music that aren't headphones, mainly because those aren't allowed in classes. Usually my teachers are aware of my CI and know that it is in fact not a music device, so I never have any trouble, but this was a sub-teacher. She wasn't aware of my CIs at first. Keep in mind that at first. While doing some assignments, the sub, who we'll call Mrs. K, came up to my desk. I don't know what exactly she thought my CIs were, but she didn't like them. Originally, she questioned me and told me to remove them immediately or she'd have to write me up. I explained to her, made her very aware that what I was wearing were for me to hear her, and even took off my beanie to show her. She pretty much called BS and attempted to take my CIs off. This was an absolute no-no. I, on instinct, slapped her hands away and stood up before starting to lecture her, telling her she has no right to try and take my CIs. After this little stir, I sat back down thinking that the situation was most likely over. I was wrong. A little bit afterwards, she came up from behind me and literally snatched my CIs from off my head. After this, I got up yet again and started full-on yelling at this lady, telling her that she is not allowed to take my assistive devices and threatened to report her. I know in this situation, me getting physical wasn't the right response, but I was scared as hell that she'd break them. So I grabbed her hands and tried to get my CIs back, which I didn't. Of course, after that, she called the principal in, and me having no clue what the hell was being said, I just straight up told the principal that she took my CIs and isn't giving them back. In the end, I got my CIs back, but obviously due to me putting my hands on a staff member, I got suspended, and my principal said I was in the wrong for the situation. My dad is threatening to report this subteacher to the administration. Small update. One thing I do know about this whole thing is that my parents are going to be confronting the administration and report the teacher. And from my parents reading your comments, the principal as well also, they're going to try and get my suspension removed from my record. I also know that my parents are done with me going to a mainstream school, because believe it or not, I've dealt with plenty of similar situations like this with students rather than teachers, and my parents are pretty sick of it, me as well. So they want me to go to a deaf high school where all of this hopefully won't be a problem. But the issue with that is there isn't a deaf school in the area I live, so they're wanting to move. Though with the economy we live in, I don't know how well that will work out. Made a moocher have to pay. I, male 36, have a group of friends from my last job that I will see regularly. We've all moved on to other jobs, but still try to hang out every few months or so, depending on everyone's schedule. It's nothing fancy, usually just grab a bite to eat somewhere and catch up. The problem came at the end of last year. One of my friends became good friends with his coworker. I'll call Mike. Mike has slowly joined our friend group and has gone out to eat with us twice now. Now, Mike is a great guy by all accounts, except he has expensive tastes, and tries the let's split the bill evenly even if he's ordered more than everyone else. First time it happened, whatever, it wasn't too bad. The second time, he ordered a full $20 more than anyone else. I should have stood my ground, but I'm too much of a people pleaser. It's something I'm working on. Well, I recently got a raise at work and wanted to celebrate with my friends. I suggested we go to a steakhouse for lunch. That way people could order off the lunch menu without spending too much. As soon as I mentioned it, Mike loved the idea. What a shocker, right? We went out for lunch and everybody ordered reasonable lunch dishes, except Mike. He got the steak and lobster. Since I was on the other corner of the table, I got to order last. Before I ordered, I asked everyone at the table if they were okay ordering separately. I wanted to splurge since I was celebrating and didn't want to make everyone else pay for it. Everyone was on board with it except for one person. I'll let you guess who that was. While we were all eating and catching up, Mike barely spoke to me. I think he was upset he had to pay his full meal. Oh well, it made my prime rib taste that much better. Anyway friends, that's going to be it for today. Thank you for watching, I do appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe and comment down below if you want to see more content like this. So take care and I'll see you in the next one.